Hi there, I'm going to talk about how to make a double hammock chest pass. I already have baby on my back in a good seat, that's important, and with both tails over my shoulder. And I'm going to start by lowering baby a bit. I'm going to take these tails and put an arm under baby's bum and sort of wiggle her, oh Becky, wiggle her down a bit. Okay, so the things I'm going to talk about the most is, first of all, rail tightening, because you need to use both hands on each rail while pinning the other rail somewhere. And the other thing I want to talk about is how much time you spend tightening the chest pass as opposed to the back passes. Okay, I'm going to take the short tail and pin it under my arms, and the first thing that often goes wrong for people here is they lose their seat as they put this under there. So the important thing is to keep tension on this bottom rail. So I'm going to take my arm, I'm going to put this not under my arm yet, but a tension starting to go under my arm. And then I'm going to take my other arm and take the bottom rail so that I can grab hold of it and keep tension on it as I lower it. And as you can see, that keeps the bottom rail tight enough. Okay, so now I have this bunch pass. There's more than one way to do this, but one good way to keep bottom rail tension is to keep it bunched for now. And then take the bottom rail and tuck it, just temporarily, tuck it under baby's bum, and then spread the top rail up.
Don't tuck it over my bum.
Alright. Okay. Alright, so at this point the bottom rail is tucked, and I'm going to deal with the top rail. And the best way to tighten the top rail is the top rail elbow. I'm going to take just the top rail, letting go of the bottom rail. As I said, I need 2 hands for each rail. Put them out like this and do a little bounce and pull. Okay, until the top rail is tightened up. And I'm going to take this top rail back under my arm and pin it. And I'm going to take the other side, gather it up, and pin it in my legs. Okay, so the top rail is done. Now I'm going to deal with the bottom rail. As you remember, we tucked it, but it's not done, it's not tightened. So usually I would just pin the top rail itself. This time, so you can see, I'm going to pin the whole pass. And I'm going to spread this down so about 1/3 of the wrap stays bunched on top. Okay. And as I do this, I'm keeping tension on the bottom rail so I don't lose the seat. And now I'm going to use both hands to walk slack across to the back. And again, it is super important that I pin the top rail, because again, I had my hands free, both hands free to deal with one rail, which is just essential. Okay, now I'm going to do an elbow, but I want you to notice that before I do the elbow, both my rails are tight. I tightened the top rail with the top rail elbow. I tightened the bottom rail by walking all the slack across with both hands, and only then is the elbow useful. So I'm going to do a little bounce and pull with my hands in an L. Okay, so now I also want to point out that up until this point, we have not been tightening the passes over baby at all. We have only been tightening the chest pass. We're not worried about the back pass at all. The back passes get tightened very last. Okay, so one more thing, which is getting the top rail up over baby's back. I usually again let go of the bottom rail and use both hands. So, as I do this, I actually don't get much slack in the bottom rail, but I get a little bit, so I usually retighten it up the same way. So, this is actually the first point at which you start worrying about tightening the passes over baby. Everything until now was just tightening the chest pass. And if you did this part right, everything else is pretty easy. Alright, Becky, you want to say bye-bye?
Bye-bye.